Hey everybody! I have some great stories for you today, so sit back, relax, and let's get into it. My ex-husband, who is 38 years old, has been dating a woman for 3 years. For context, she is 24 years old. My ex and I were married for 12 years and have been divorced for 5 years. We have 3 kids together who are now teenagers. My ex and I got divorced because we were young when we met and got married, and we grew apart as people. It was a mutual decision, and we agreed our kids came first and have always co-parented very well. This has been the case up until the last year when his girlfriend moved in with him. Previously, we would do holidays and kids' birthdays together. Now, when she is present, they won't even sit near me at our kids' sporting events. I have always been nice to this woman, despite my kids expressing they do not like her, and they feel their dad acts differently when she is around. My ex told me early on she wasn't a fan of me and felt I intimidated her. When I asked him for examples of how I intimidated her, he said it's my face, that I have resting witch face and it makes her uncomfortable. My ex and she got engaged over Christmas, and my kids were less than thrilled, my daughter especially. She feels her dad made a major life decision without even talking to them about it first. My ex called me yesterday saying he is giving me a heads up that I have a year to change my last name back to my maiden name, as his fiancée is expressing her distaste and concern for her and me to have the same last name when they get married. I told him we agreed in our divorce that I could keep his last name until I felt the need to change it, and that is what is listed in our paperwork. I also told him I don't want to have a different last name than our kids. He said I'm being unreasonable and refusing to see how this would make his fiancée uncomfortable. I told him I can't see it from her side because I am a grown-up and not an immature child like she is. He told me I could ask anyone about this situation and everyone would agree with her. So am I the jerk for refusing to change my last name to make her happy? Oh, honey, let's get one thing straight. You are not in the wrong for wanting to keep your last name. It's more than a name, it's your identity, and more importantly, it connects you to your kids. Your ex's fiancé needs to grow up and realize that marriage is about more than sharing a last name. It's about building a life together, not erasing the past. Your ex is also at fault here for not standing up for you and the agreement you both made. It's concerning that he's allowing his fiancée's insecurities to dictate the terms of your co-parenting. You keep standing your ground. This isn't about her comfort. It's about your rights and your children's sense of family and stability. And now, before I talk your ear off even more, let's move on to the next post. I, a 25-year-old female, got married 2 weeks ago. My now husband, a 27-year-old male, and I paid for most of the wedding, but my father covered a few costs for us. My father's girlfriend, Stella, has a daughter, Zoe, a 21-year-old female, who is finishing her degree in fashion. She wants to get into the wedding dress industry once she graduates. When I started planning my wedding, she offered to design and make my dress. I was hesitant at first, as I'd been excited about picking out my own dress. I agreed because I didn't know Zoe well. My father had only been dating her mother for 2 years, and I thought this could be a nice opportunity to bond. Also, I'd seen some of her work. She'd made a couple of ball gowns in college, and she seemed honestly good. We met up a few times to discuss our ideas. During those meetings, I realized our styles were drastically different, but we still managed to agree on a design. I gave Zoe my measurements and asked her to update me. She didn't. Whenever I asked her how she was doing, she'd say she would send me progress pictures when she got home, but she never did. It took her longer than expected to finish it, and I didn't get the dress until a month before my wedding. It looked nothing like the design we'd agreed on. It was the wrong colour, the wrong style, everything. It looked exactly like the type of dress Zoe would want to wear, but I knew I'd never wear anything like it. I really did not like that dress. When I tried it on, I found out it was also about 3 sizes too big. though I knew I could probably have it altered. I truly did not want to wear that dress on my wedding day. I called Zoe and told her I wouldn't wear the dress. I said it looked lovely, but not the style we'd agreed on, and I thought it would be best for me to find a different dress. I offered to pay her for her work. She'd made the dress for free, but she declined and hung up on me. I went to a retail bridal store with my maid of honour, and we found a beautiful gown that didn't need much altering. It looked exactly like what I wanted. Fast forward to my wedding, I walked down the aisle in the dress I bought. Zoe seemed to be on the verge of tears during the ceremony, and Stella gave me dirty looks throughout the reception. When I approached them, a while later, they were both short with me. My father, Stella, and Zoe left less than an hour into the reception. My father and Stella called me the next day and told me off for how I'd treated Zoe. This had been her first time making a wedding dress and had been excited to see me wearing it. They said it was insulting of me to not wear the dress she'd put so much effort into. I tried to explain why I hadn't worn the dress, but they're both insisting the dress was beautiful, and I could have sucked it up. My husband and my younger sister, not Zoe, are on my side. I've been feeling guilty about this since I decided not to wear the dress. Am I the jerk? Look, let's cut to the chase. You're not in the wrong for wanting to wear a dress that makes you feel beautiful on your wedding day. It's a big day, and it's about you and your partner, not Zoe's portfolio. Yes, it's unfortunate that her feelings were hurt, but this was a professional arrangement that went south, not a personal attack. The fact that the dress was completely off from what you discussed is on her, not you. Offering to pay was a classy move, especially since you ended up not using her creation. Your dad and Stella need to understand that your wedding isn't Zoe's runway show. It's not about sucking it up. It's about feeling confident and happy on one of the most significant days of your life. You did what you had to do, and you did it with grace. Don't hold your tongue on this one. Let me know what you were all thinking in the comments section. All right, I'm sick of hearing my own voice, so let's get into our next post. I, a 16-year-old female, was in the hospital until a few days ago because of my heart. I was born with a heart condition, and I got sick again a few weeks ago. They performed surgery, and now I'm recovering and already doing much better. However, while I was in the hospital, I had a fight with my mum and her husband, but mostly with my mum, and I need some perspective on whether I'm wrong or not. Background. My dad was in an accident when I was 6. He suffered severe brain damage and was not the same person he used to be. He's not able to take care of himself, needs a wheelchair, and had to learn to talk again. But that came slowly, and after many years. He has improved in recent years, but he's permanently disabled and has a bunch of health problems that came from the accident. My mum and dad were married when the accident happened, but after my dad was made permanently disabled, my mum divorced him. He's taken care of by my uncle, his brother, now. My mum told me it was in our best interest to move on. My mum ended up marrying a guy named Jason. When she told me she was dating him, I called her a bunch of names and did not take it well. I also didn't take the news of the divorce easily either. I was so angry. My mum told me it was better for us. So Jason moved in and they got married. Then we found out he had a then 4-year-old he didn't know, and she moved in. Then my mum and Jason had 2 kids together. One big issue I have is that my mum expected me to see Jason as my new dad, and she encouraged me to let my dad go and instead rely on Jason. She tried to cut me off from my dad, but the courts did not like that, and even though he doesn't have custody where I live in his house, I get to see him several times a month per the courts. My mum thinks I would be healthier and have a better life if I let Jason be my dad. Jason told me a few times how much it offends him that I would rather have someone who can never be a dad to me again over him. I'm not very close to my stepsister or half-siblings either. I know none of this is their fault, but I don't spend a lot of time at home and don't want to be around them because it means being around either my mum or Jason. So when I was in the hospital and they told me about the surgery, I called my uncle and asked if my dad could come and see me and be there for some of it. My mum didn't like that, and she told me she didn't want the other kids to see my dad because of the way he is. I told her they didn't have to see him, but I wanted to. My mum told me that means my siblings can't be there, and I told her I would rather have my dad than them there, that he's my dad. I told her I would pick my dad over her, and Jason too. I told her she might have declared him worthless because of his disability, but he will always be my dad, and she better accept it or she'll lose me. My dad was with me before surgery, and when I woke up, my mum is still upset about what I said. She held on to it until I got home from the hospital, but she said, my siblings feel so rejected by what I said. Am I the jerk? Look, your feelings are valid. You've been through a lot, and it's clear your mum and Jason are trying to force a narrative that just doesn't fit for you. It's one thing to move on and build a new life, but it's another to expect you to erase your dad from your life, especially given his condition. Your dad, despite his disabilities, is still your dad. Period. It's understandable you'd want him by your side during such a scary time. Your mum's insistence on prioritising the comfort of your siblings over your need to have your dad by your side in the hospital is selfish, to say the least. And Jason's offence at your bond with your dad? That's his issue to work through, not yours. You're navigating a tough situation with more maturity than the adults around you. They should be supporting you, not making things harder. All right, guys, now we must move on to the next post, or else I'm going to lose my voice. So I, a 17-year-old male, found out only a few weeks ago that my dad left me a lot of money in a trust. It's such a crazy amount that I didn't really believe it at first, but it's true. The reason is my dad had inherited from both his parents already. He also inherited from the only 2 uncles he had as well, and one of them was very successful and had a business. This was all explained in a letter my dad wrote to me. He had the trust set up before he came into most of the money, but when he found out his cancer was incurable, he decided to put it all aside for me once all medical bills were paid off for him. My parents were separated but not legally divorced when my dad was sick/died. But they weren't living together or a couple for a year. This was 10 years ago. My mum found out about the money because she read the letter he sent to me about the issue. Then she insisted she was joining me to meet with the lawyer to discuss this. When my mum learned about the money, she told her husband, and suddenly the money became a very touchy subject. I can't touch it until I'm 19 with the way my dad set it up. So I have some time to deal with this, but my mum and her husband want me to share the money with my step-siblings, who are 14, 8 and 7 years old. The money is enough where even if I pay for college and buy a house, I would have money left. The way the trust works, I was told it's also getting interest, which my dad had intentionally set up. My mum and her husband have struggled financially for years. They started dating when his youngest kid was 1. His wife had died, he was going through a legal battle with the mother of his oldest, and his oldest is in therapy for trauma caused by their mum. Also, his youngest was born with some medical issues and has lots of doctor appointments. Between everything, money was tight. We live paycheck to paycheck, and I worked to make my own life a little more comfortable. But we had no college savings or anything before this. My mum and her husband drained their own bank account to keep a roof over our heads. This has all been brought up to me as a good reason why I should do this. My mum told me it was selfish for my dad to put it all away solely for my future, and he should have been thinking about raising me as well. She told me I might not call her husband dad or his kids my siblings, but we are a family, and that this family has been through so much together, and we have struggled for so long, that it would be so good and generous for me to do this. I told her it's not like I can access the money now. She said no, but when I do, I should set up accounts for my 3 step-siblings, so they have a better chance at college, and if not college, the chance to have a help start in life. Despite all their trying to talk me into it, I said no. I told them I wasn't going to share the money. My mum was so mad. But it was nothing compared to how mad her husband was. They told me to quit being selfish and start acting with compassion. Am I the jerk? Look, your dad left you that money for a reason, and it wasn't to bail out your mum and her new family. It's tough, I get it. Life threw them a curveball, but that doesn't automatically entitle them to your inheritance. Your mum calling your dad selfish, that's rich considering she's trying to guilt-trip you into sharing something that was meant for you and you alone. Compassion is one thing, but being manipulated into solving financial problems you didn't create is another. Stand your ground. This money is a gift from your dad, meant to secure your future, not to be divvied up under pressure. Your mum and her husband's anger. It's misplaced. They should be focusing on finding other solutions, not banking on your inheritance. Don't forget to let me know if you think I missed anything in the comment section below. All right, I'm sick of hearing my own voice, so let's get into our next post. I, a 17-year-old female, lost my dad when I was 5. My parents were married, but I remember my dad being more present in my early memories than my mum. When my dad died, my mum wasn't there for me. She left me to raise myself, or she roped in some extended family to take care of me, usually grandparents. But she wouldn't always do that, and I was sort of forced to become independent and more mature in some ways to raise myself. I had to make sure I ate, did homework, and got to school on time, all without my mum's help. The most she'd do is make some food, but she wouldn't even tell me she had. I usually had to search the fridge to find it. My grandparents were the ones who celebrated my birthdays with me, and they were the ones who typically went to my school for parent conferences. My mum doesn't know me. She couldn't tell you what classes I take in high school, what my favourite food or colour is, who my friends and best friends are. Nothing. 5 years ago she met her husband Sam, and pretty quickly, like before they were living together, my mum got pregnant. So Sam moved in, and my mum married him. Her daughter was born 4 years ago, and her son followed along 2 years ago. Right away I saw the difference in how my mum is with them. She knows them, she loves them, she dedicates time to them, she advocates for them. All the things I do not remember her ever doing for me. She eats with them and plays with them, and she takes her daughter to preschool every day and takes her for a treat after. It sucks to see. I didn't get a good mum, but I see she had it in her to be a good mum and chose not to be. Sam isn't as good as my dad was, though, but he's still better than my mum ever was to me. Last week, my mum asked me to babysit for her and Sam, and I said no. My mum was shocked and asked me why I wouldn't babysit. I told her I had work and I had plans with friends. She told me she would have expected me to want time with the kids. I told her I don't want time with her do-over family. She asked me what that meant, and I said Sam and the kids are her do-over family. She is a better mum to her younger kids, and she and Sam have created their own perfect little family with them and their kids. But she was never that for me. I told her I have zero interest in helping her out with the do-over family, and I pointed out that it was the most she had said to me in years, because she normally doesn't talk to me or include me in anything. The only reason she was speaking to me is that she wanted something. She was all, "How dare you say that about Sam and the kids?" And she told me I had an awful attitude, and she hopes the kids never pick up on how I feel about them and their dad. She told me they deserve better than being described that way, and told me I had some nerve to be jealous that her kids have a happy family life. I laughed and told her she only cared about them, and that was clear. She called me a nasty little witch. Am I the jerk? Look, it's clear as day. Your feelings are valid. Growing up feeling neglected and then witnessing your mum transform into the parent you always needed but for someone else, that's a tough pill to swallow. It's not about being jealous of your siblings. It's about mourning the relationship you never had with your mum. You're not obligated to babysit or play happy families. Your mum's reaction, Defensive and hurtful, not the understanding or apology you deserved. It's a harsh reality, but sometimes we have to accept that our parents are flawed humans, too. Your focus? Building a life where you decide who deserves your time and energy. And remember, it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Now, let's get into our next post. I am going to lay this out in the most basic way I can. I work from home, as does my wife. She wanted a dog. I said we did not have enough time to take care of a dog. She pestered me until I agreed. We took our time and found a rescue that had several pups that met our criteria. Small, adult, requiring just a couple of short walks a day. They did home visits and stuff. It was taking a while. During that time, my wife found a farm that had working blue heeler, cross-border collie pups. She got me one for my birthday. I had one just like her when I lived at home with my parents. She is a beautiful puppy, but not in any way what we agreed on. We live in an apartment with no yard. My parents have an acreage. I am very busy. I do not have time for all the training and exercise that she needs. I told my wife thanks, but no thanks. She refused to listen to me, so I just refused to bond with the pup. I didn't even name her. I told my wife I would make sure that the pup was fed and got 2 half-hour walks a day, since that's what we agreed on. Everything else was on her. It took 2 weeks of barking, chewing, and pooping until she rehomed the pup. Now, she is mad that I manipulated her into doing what I said we should do to begin with. She said she thought I would love a puppy that was like my old one. If we had the space and time for her, I would have. I am pissed that I had to even do it. I feel bad for the dog. I'm thinking of not even doing the rescue now that I know more about how my wife thinks. Look, I get it. You were put in a tough spot. But refusing to bond with a living, breathing creature that has no idea why it's being neglected, that's cold. Sure, your wife made a huge mistake by ignoring the agreed-upon plan, and yes, she should have listened. But the pup, it didn't sign up for this. It needed care, training, and love, regardless of how it came into your lives. You both failed here. Her for not respecting the agreement, and you for taking it out on an innocent animal. And now, considering ditching the rescue idea because of this mess, that's punishing yourselves and a potential rescue dog for a situation that could have been handled with more communication and compassion from the start. All right, now for the next post. When we married, we decided not to fully combine our finances. We have a shared account in which I fund 3/4 and she funds 1/4. We use this account to pay the mortgage, utilities, groceries, etc. We also have our separate accounts where we deposit the rest of our money. We're responsible for our own investments and cars. Things worked well for a couple of years, until recently when she came to me crying. It turns out my wife is not good with her money and owes $150,000 spread over several credit cards and her car loan. Unless she wins the lottery, there's no way she would be able to pay off her debt, and I didn't want her to mess up her credit by declaring bankruptcy. I decided to loan her the money to pay off the debt on strict conditions. I will take over her finances, including receiving her income. She will be placed on a strict allowance and budget. She will have to ask permission to buy anything over $50 and have to go by my judgment. Once she pays me back the money, she can take control of her own finances. She argued against the conditions until I pointed out I don't have $150,000 in cash stuffed in the couch. I will have to sell some assets, including stocks that are currently performing well. If I loan her the money, it will cost me money. She finally agreed. So was I wrong to put those conditions on her? Hello all, I read some of your comments at lunch and continue to read them. When I got home from work, she started another round of arguments about the trip. I pointed out she has no money, at which point she pointed out that she hasn't hit the limit on one of her credit cards, and that card should cover her for a weekend. So I drove back to my office and we'll spend the night here. To answer some of your questions, 1. Our shared account pays for everything in the house. For example, a few weeks ago we bought a new cookware set from Costco, and that money came from the shared account. 2. She works a full-time job. Minus her contribution to the shared account, the rest of her income is hers to spend as she wishes. I cover things we do together like dinners, dates and vacations. 3. The principal amount she owes is about $120,000, of which about half is her car loan. The rest consists of interests and late fees. 4. I didn't bring up her debt in front of our friends because I wanted to protect her reputation. 5. I haven't liquidated anything. I'm working with my advisor and broker to decide what to liquidate to take the least financial and tax hit. 6. She doesn't gamble. I looked over her bills and it looked like she spent her money on dinners, drinks and shopping with her friends. 7. We've been married for less than 5 years and do not have children. We talked about starting a family in a couple of years. All right, let's cut to the chase. You're in a tough spot and no mistake. But here's the thing. Stepping in to bail her out was a generous move. But the conditions you've set? They're bordering on parental. It's one thing to want to prevent financial ruin, but it's another to control her spending down to the last dime. Yes, she's made some huge mistakes with money, but treating her like a child isn't the solution. It's clear you're trying to protect both of your futures, but there's a fine line between help and control. The dinner party incident? A public no was bound to humiliate her. There's a conversation about trust and responsibility that needs to happen here, but it's got to be built on mutual respect, not ultimatums. Remember, marriage is a partnership, not a parent-child dynamic. Let me know in the comments if I'm way off the mark on this one. Now, we must move on to the next post before I bore you to death.